Star Island. The name says it all. This is where the gods of America live. A fortress of wealth, gated off from the rest of the world by armed guards in the sparkling blue waters of Biscayne Bay. At the center of this paradise stands a mansion that represents the absolute peak of the American dream. White marble, manicured lawns, a place built for parties that became legends, a place built by a man who called himself Love. But today, the music has stopped. Instead of celebrities in white linen suits, the lawn is swarming with federal agents in tactical gear, Homeland Security, weapons drawn. They are not here for an autograph. They are here to dismantle an empire. Inside those walls, the air is thick with panic. The sons of the mogul are handcuffed on the lawn, illuminated by the harsh glare of news helicopters circling above like vultures waiting for a carcass. The man who built this kingdom isn't there. He is at an airport, intercepted by agents, his private jet grounded, his phone seized, his power evaporated in seconds. For 30 years, Sean Diddy Combs was the untouchable architect of culture. He told us he was the bad boy for life. But as the agents carried out box after box of secrets from his home, the world realized that bad boy wasn't just a brand name. It was a warning label we ignored for too long. Look at him, the smile that could sell sand to the desert. The energy that birthed the notorious B.I.G., Mary J., Blige, and Usher. To the public, he was the ultimate mogul, the embodiment of black excellence. The man who proved that a kid from Harlem could own the skyline of New York. He preached black joy and no way out. But turn off the spotlight, and a different figure emerges from the shadows. A man accused of running a criminal enterprise, not with guns, but with leverage. A man who allegedly turned the dreams of young artists into cages. They call him a visionary. They call him a monster. How can one man be the hero who uplifted a culture and the villain who preyed upon it? He built a citadel of silence, cemented with money and fear. But the thing about silence is, eventually, it screams. We often ask, how did he get away with it for so long? That is the wrong question. The real question is, why did we let him? In the next hour, we are not just analyzing a lawsuit. We are dissecting the psychology of absolute control. We will explore how a man fueled by an insatiable need for power built a machinery of manipulation. We will look at the freak-offs, the intimidation, and the terrifying pattern of destroying the very people he claimed to love. This isn't just a story about a rapper gone bad. This is a story about the corruption of the soul. It is about what happens when you believe you are God, but you act like the devil. Hello, storytellers. Welcome back. Transport yourself back to New York City, 1993. The golden era of hip-hop. The streets were hungry, and the music was raw. Into this vacuum stepped a young, hungry intern named Sean Combs. He didn't rap. He didn't sing. But he danced. And he hustled harder than anyone else. He promised to take us to the top. And he did. He gave us the shiny suit era. He gave us hits that will live forever. But every empire is built on something. Some are built on stone. Diddy's empire, it seems, was built on secrets. For decades, the whispers were there, in the lyrics, in the rumors, in the eyes of the people around him. Now, the whispers have become a roar. Today, we are walking into the VIP room that no one was supposed to see. From the rise of Bad Boy Records to the catastrophic fall of 2024. Grab your drink. Lock the door. This is the story of the mogul versus Paddock. The monster. Let's begin. To understand the empire, you have to dig up the foundation. And the foundation of Sean Combs is built on a graveyard. Harlem, 1972. Sean was just a toddler when his father, Melvin Earl Combs, was found slumped over the steering wheel of his Cadillac. He had been shot in the head. It was a mob hit. Melvin wasn't just a father. He was an associate of the notorious drug lord, Frank Lucas. He was a man of the streets, and the streets collected their debt. But Sean didn't know this. For years, his mother, Janice, protected him with a beautiful lie. She told him his father died in a car accident. She worked 3 jobs, moved the family to the quiet, leafy suburbs of Mount Vernon, and tried to scrub the stain of Harlem off their lives. But you cannot hide the truth from a smart child forever. One day, in a library, a teenage Sean found the old newspaper clippings. He saw the truth in black and white. His father wasn't a victim of a tragedy. He was a casualty of the game. That moment changed his DNA. Psychologists often talk about trauma response. For Sean, the response was a vow. He looked at his father's fate and made a decision that would drive him for the next 40 years. He decided he would get all the money, all the power, and all the respect his father had. But he would do it legally. He would be so rich, so famous, and so powerful that the darkness could never touch him again. He wasn't running toward success. He was running away from becoming Melvin Combs. While other kids in Mount Vernon were playing baseball, Sean was building a portfolio. At 12 years old, he had a paper route. But he didn't just throw newspapers on porches. He studied his customers. He realized that old ladies tipped better if you smiled and asked about their day. He realized that if he delivered early, he beat the competition. He didn't just want to be a paper boy. He wanted to own the block. By the time he got to Howard University in Washington, D.C., the hustler was fully formed. He wasn't the best student. He wasn't the smartest scholar. But he was a master of influence. He started throwing parties, and not just keggers in a dorm room. He treated parties like military operations. He hired security. He marketed them like blockbuster movies. He charged admission. Legend has it, he would stand at the door and inspect people's shoes. If your shoes weren't fresh, you weren't getting in. Even then, At 19 years old, he was obsessed with curating the image. He was already practicing the art of exclusion. He learned a dangerous lesson early. People want what they can't have. If you make them feel lucky just to be in your presence, you own them. But Howard University was too small for his appetite. He looked north, towards New York City, where a new sound was bubbling up from the concrete. It was called hip-hop, and Sean Combs smelled money. This is the movie scene. This is the moment the Puff Daddy mythology was born. The year is 1990. Imagine a 20-year-old kid. He is technically a student at Howard ND. But his eyes are fixed on Uptown Records in New York City. Uptown was the Motown of hip-hop, run by the legendary Andre Harrell. Sean wants in, but he doesn't have a resume. He doesn't have an invitation. So he creates his own door. He begs Andre Harrell for an internship. Harrell says yes, probably thinking the kid would last a week. But Sean Combs turned that internship into a gladiator match. Here is the reality of his schedule. He would finish his classes in D. C. On Thursday. He would run to Union Station and jump on an Amtrak train for a 4-hour ride to New York. He would sleep on the train. He would sleep on the floor of the studio. He would sleep in the file room. He didn't have a salary. He didn't have a title. But watch him work. While the paid employees were taking lunch breaks, Sean was washing Andre Harrell's car. He was walking the dogs. He was fetching coffee. But he was also listening. He was sitting in the corner of executive meetings, soaking up every word about budgets, marketing, and A and R. One day, Andre Harrell throws him a bone. He lets the intern handle the styling for a new R&B group called Jodeci. At the time, R&B singers wore suits and bow ties. They were safe. Sean looked at Jodeci 4 church boys from the South and said, "No, we're not doing suits. We're doing leather. We're doing combat boots. We're doing hoodies." Everyone thought he was crazy. You don't mix hip-hop fashion with R&B ballads. But Sean knew something they didn't. He knew the girls loved the bad boy look. He put Jodeci in black leather and baseball caps. The result? They became sex symbols overnight. The album went platinum. The intern had outsmarted the experts. He proved that he didn't need to sing a note to make a hit. He just needed to control the vibe. He dropped out of Howard University. He bet his entire future on this hustle. By age 22, he wasn't an intern anymore. He was the youngest vice president in the history of the music business. He was driving a BMW while his former classmates were still studying for finals. He had arrived. Let's pause and analyze this, because this is the first crucial lesson from the rise of Diddy. How did a kid with no musical talent become the king of music? He mastered the law of proximity. Sean Combs understood that talent is cheap. There are a million singers with beautiful voices singing in the shower right now. But access is everything. He knew that if he stayed in D.C., he would just be a party promoter. But if he put himself in the room with Andre Harrell, Even if he had to wash cars to get there, he could steal the blueprint. The lesson here is about being undeniable. He didn't wait for permission. He didn't ask for a syllabus. He made himself so useful, so essential, that the company literally couldn't function without him. He understood that in the beginning, you have to eat dirt, so that later, you can eat caviar. But there is a shadow side to this ambition. When you are willing to do anything to win, when you are willing to sleep on floors, skip meals, and manipulate images just to get ahead, you start to lose your boundaries. Sean Combs learned that he could outwork anyone, but he also learned that he could outmaneuver anyone. He realized that the music business wasn't about art. It was about leverage. And as he looked around his new office at Uptown Records, he wasn't satisfied. He didn't just want to work for the boss. He wanted to kill the boss and take the throne. The bad boy was born, and he was about to meet the man who would make him a billionaire and haunt him forever, the notorious B. I-G. Let's talk about the year 1997. If you were alive then, you remember the air. The air smelled of money. It smelled of Ciroc, expensive cologne, and gunpowder. The notorious B.I.G. was dead. The King of New York had fallen. Most people thought Bad Boy Records would die with him. They thought the intern from Howard University would pack his bags and fade away. They were wrong. Sean Combs didn't mourn in silence. He turned grief into the greatest marketing campaign in music history. He released "I'll Be Missing You." It wasn't just a song. It was a hymn. It played at weddings, funerals, graduations. It forced the world to look at him, not as the sidekick, but as the survivor, the chosen one. And then he changed his name, Puff Daddy. He took off the black leather and put on the shiny suits. He turned the lights on. For the next decade, he wasn't just a music executive. He was the Great Gatsby of the hip-hop generation. Imagine the white parties in the Hamptons. Once a year, the most powerful people on earth, Oprah, Trump, Jay-Z. Leonardo DiCaprio would dress in pure white and gather on his lawn. Why white? Because white is the color of purity. It is the color of angels. Sean Combs wanted the world to see him as an angel. He wanted to scrub away the grit of Harlem and present himself as black royalty. He controlled the guest list. He controlled the dress code. He controlled the music. He was the conductor of American culture. If Diddy wore it, you bought it. If Diddy drank it, you drank it. If Diddy signed them, you listened to them. He had achieved the dream of the 2-year-old paperboy. He was untouchable. He was a billionaire. He was brother love. But there is a law of physics that applies to souls as well as stars. The brighter, the light. The darker, the shadow it casts. And while the cameras were focused on the white linen suits on the front lawn, no one was looking at what was happening in the basement. Power is a drug. And like any addict, Sean Combs needed higher doses to feel the same high. Money wasn't enough anymore. Fame wasn't enough. He needed ownership, not just of masters or publishing rights, but of people. Listen closely to the stories of the artists who signed with him. The pattern is terrifyingly consistent. He didn't just want to make them stars. He wanted to remake them in his image. He wanted to be their father, their brother, their god. He called it the bad boy family. But families don't usually operate on fear. He curated their clothes. He dictated their diets. He decided who they could love and who they had to leave. There is a psychological term for this: coercive control. It starts slowly. It starts with gifts. A new car, a chain, a promise to make you the biggest star in the world. Then, the walls start to close in. "You owe me," he would say. "I made you. Without me, you are nothing." The shiny suit became a straitjacket. And the most tragic victim of this architecture was not a rapper. It was a young, beautiful girl named Cassie Ventura. She was 19. He was 37. He saw her potential, yes, but he also saw a canvas he could paint on. For a decade, the world saw them on red carpets. They looked like the perfect power couple. He, the mogul. She, the muse. But behind the tinted windows of the Maybachs, a nightmare was unfolding. A nightmare of absolute possession. He didn't just want her heart. He wanted her silence. History is often written in years, but it changes in seconds. For Sean Combs, the clock stopped on November 16, 2023. That was the day the silence broke. Cassie filed a lawsuit. And this wasn't just a lawsuit about money. It was a dossier of horror. She described a decade of abuse that sounded like a script from a horror movie. She spoke of Freakoff's drug-fueled marathons, where she was allegedly forced to perform acts with other men while he watched and filmed. She spoke of being beaten, being drugged, being hunted. The world gasped. But Diddy did what Diddy always does. He denied. He fought back. He called it a money grab. He settled the lawsuit in one day, paying millions to make it go away. He thought he had bought the silence again. He thought he was still the Teflon Don. He posted videos on Instagram, working out, smiling, preaching love. He thought the storm had passed. But he forgot one thing. In the digital age, the past doesn't die. It waits. 6 months later, May 17, 2024, CNN released a video. It was grainy surveillance footage from a hotel hallway in Los Angeles, dated 2016. In the video, Cassie is seen waiting for an elevator, holding her bags, trying to leave. Then, Sean Combs appears. He is wearing a towel. He runs down the hall. He grabs her by the back of the neck. He throws her to the floor like a rag doll. He kicks her. He drags her back towards the room. There was no sound in the video, but the violence was deafening. In those 30 seconds of footage, the brother love persona didn't just crack. It evaporated. The world saw the monster. There was no spin doctor who could fix this. There was no check large enough to erase it. The curtain had been pulled back, and the wizard was revealed to be a tyrant. Let me paint a picture of what rock bottom looks like for a man who touched the sky. It is September 2024. The Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. This is not the Hamptons. There are no white parties here. There is no Ciroc. This is a federal jail known for its brutality, to its cold, and its rats. Sean Combs is sitting in a cell. He is denied bail. Twice. The man who lived in a 40,000 square foot mansion is now confined to an 8x10 concrete box. He is placed on suicide watch. Not necessarily because he wants to die, but because the fall is so steep, the shock is so severe, that the human mind can snap. Imagine the silence in that cell. For 30 years, his life was noise, music, screaming fans, paparazzi shutters. Yes, men laughing at his jokes. Now, the only sound is the buzzing of a fluorescent light and the slamming of iron doors. He is stripped of his name. He is just inmate number 94567-054. He has no phone to call a fixer. He has no jet to fly to an island. He is left alone with the one thing he ran from his entire life, himself. The ghosts of his past, Melvin Combs, Biggie, the artists he discarded, the women he hurt, they are all in that cell with him. He built a fortress to keep the world out, but in the end, he built a prison to keep himself in. The realization hits him in the cold, gray light of dawn. The money didn't save him. The fame didn't save him. The empire he sacrificed his soul to build has become his tomb. Let's stop and breathe. We need to dissect this. Why did he fall? It wasn't just because of the crimes. It was because of the ego. Sean Combs fell into the oldest trap in human history, the God complex. He started to believe his own myth. He believed that he was above the law. He believed that people were not human beings with souls, but assets on a balance sheet. He confused fear with respect. He thought that if people were afraid of him, they loved him. But fear is a fragile foundation. Fear works until the moment it doesn't. Until one person, one young woman, decides she is more afraid of staying than she is of leaving. The lesson here is terrifyingly simple. You cannot own people. You can own houses. You can own masters. You can own brands. But the moment you try to own a soul, you declare war on humanity. And humanity always wins in the end. Diddy spent his life trying to control the narrative. He wanted to write the movie of his life, where he was the hero. But in the darkness of that prison cell, he realized a brutal truth. He wasn't the director anymore. Karma was holding the camera now, and she doesn't do retakes. what happens when a legacy is built on a lie. It doesn't just crumble. It vanishes. After the raid, after the videos, after the handcuffs, something fascinating happened. The world didn't just get angry at Diddy. The world started to erase him. It was a swift, brutal cultural excision. Companies that had partnered with him for decades dropped him in hours. Macy's stopped selling his clothes. Ciroc and DeLeon brands he built from the ground up cut ties. It was as if the corporate world was saying, "We don't know this man." Even his own family distanced themselves. The artists he claimed to love, the celebrities who drank his champagne. Silence. The phone in his cell wasn't ringing. This is the second death. The first death is physical. The second death is when your name becomes a curse word. Sean Combs spent 30 years putting his name on everything. Hospitals, schools, vodka, water. In 30 days, his name was scrubbed off the walls. He was stripped of his honorary degree from Howard University. The scholarship fund in his name was shut down. The Black excellence icon was now being called a culture vulture. He was watching his life's work dissolve in real time, helpless, behind bars. But there was one moment that symbolized the end more than any other. It wasn't a court ruling. It was a metal object. In September 2023, just months before the fall, Diddy stood in Times Square. He was beaming. The mayor of New York, Eric Adams, handed him the key to the city. It was the ultimate validation. The boy from Harlem owned New York. He held the key to the kingdom. He shouted to the crowd, "I want you to dream big." Less than a year later, in June 2024, after the release of the Cassie video, the mayor sent a letter. He asked for the key back. Think about the humiliation. Sean Combs, the king of New York, had to package that key in a box and mail it back like a defective product. When he mailed that key back, he wasn't just returning a souvenir. He was surrendering his citizenship. He was no longer the son of Harlem. He was an outcast. It was a quiet, pathetic end to a loud reign. The city that made him had evicted him. But in this destruction, there was a strange kind of rebirth. Not for him, but for the culture. For the first time in 30 years, people in the music industry stopped whispering. The Omerta code of silence was broken. Victims who had been terrified for decades found their voices. The fear that Diddy had manufactured evaporated. The monster fell, and in his fall, he liberated the village. So, what is the legacy of Sean Diddy Combs? He wanted to be remembered as the Black Sinatra. He wanted to be remembered as love. But history is a ruthless editor. It cuts out the PR spin and leaves only the truth. The lesson here is profound. Legacy is not what you build. It is how you made people feel. You can build a billion-dollar company. You can buy the most expensive art. You can throw the biggest parties. But if the foundation of your castle is the trauma of others, gravity will eventually do its job. Diddy taught us a masterclass in branding. but he failed the master class in humanity. He proved that talent can get you to the top, but only character can keep you there. When the music stops, when the lights go out, when the entourage leaves, you are left with your conscience. For Sean Combs, the tragedy isn't that he lost his money. The tragedy is that he lost his story. He will not be remembered as the man who invented the remix. He will be remembered as the man who reminded us that monsters often wear the finest suits. Success without a soul is not success. It's just a shiny cage. We have walked through the ruins of an empire. And what have we found? We found a boy named Sean, who was running from the ghost of his father. He taught us the power of the hunger, that if you are willing to outwork everyone, you can turn an internship into a kingdom. But he forgot to stop running. We saw the rise of the mogul who fell into the ego trap. He believed that he could control people the way he controlled a mixing board. He taught us a brutal lesson. You can buy silence for a while, but you cannot buy it forever. When you treat human beings like disposable objects, eventually they will become the architects of your destruction. And finally, we witnessed the erasure. The man who wanted his name on everything is now watching his name being scrubbed from history. He taught us that legacy is fragile. It takes a lifetime to build a reputation, but only 30 seconds of video footage to destroy it. The tragedy of Sean Combs is not that he wanted to be a king. It is that he forgot how to be a man. My friends, we live in a world that worships the hustle. We glorify the billionaires, the moguls, the ones who take no prisoners. But let Diddy's story be a warning to us all. Be careful what you sacrifice on the altar of success. If you have to lose your soul to gain the world, you have made a bad deal. If you have to hurt people to maintain your power, you are not powerful. You are weak. Real power isn't about how many people fear you. It's about how many people respect you when you have nothing left to offer them. Don't build a shiny suit to hide a dark heart, because eventually the lights will turn off, and in the dark, only your character shines. Now, I turn the question to you. Do you think Sean Diddy Combs can ever be redeemed? Or is this the final chapter of his story? And the bigger question, can we separate the art from the artist? Can you still listen to I'll Be Missing You the Same Way Again? Let me know your honest thoughts in the comments below. Let's have a real conversation about power and accountability. If this deep dive opened your eyes, please hit that like button and subscribe. It helps us shine a light on the stories that matter. And if you want to understand another story where talent met organized crime, but with a very different ending, you need to watch our documentary on Frank Sinatra, The Voice versus The Mob. It's the perfect prequel to understanding how the music industry and the underworld have danced together for decades. Click right here to watch it now. Thank you for watching. I'm Peter. Stay hungry, but stay humble. And always, watch the throne.